Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, is anybody else there? Hello?
Hi.
But we'll wait a minute or two before we start. Okay. So I got, let's see, it's Case, Adriana, KK, Hannah. If anybody else shows up. Sarah Miller. Okay, can you hear me? Yes?
Yeah.
Thumbs up, okay. All right. I wanted to hear more people. All right. Okay, I wanted to say a little bit about the exam because, I try to get the first exam in quickly so that people get an idea of what it is and what to do. So the other exams will be longer. They'll have some more questions, but you'll get more time. And so that, it works out to be about the same amount of work and the same amount of time. Usually it'll be mostly multiple choice and, true, false, that kind of stuff. But you'll always have to do some writing. So that there'll always be some bit of writing questions. And so, but usually those will be things that I have asked you about on the forums or something like that. With the online exams, very often, I kind of send this out and it goes out and then I kind of wait for it to come back. And then there are people that don't take them. And so then I send emails and after that, then I make phone calls. And so I can't get them back corrected quickly because I'm waiting to hear from other people. And so if everybody takes them at the time, then I would have them probably back in a day or two. But since they don't, then I'm stuck. And then after a week, then I will put it back. So that stuff will come back to you in about a week. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
So when we had the vaccines forum, on my computer, I didn't have a link to click and share to the class. So I wasn't able to do it.
I usually put a date on those. And so then you should email me and I will put an extension. So do you still have your post? Did you save it? I will make sure I can get it. Okay.
Okay.
And that's case vaccine. One of the big problems is schedule stuff. And so we kind of move along and it's easy to get a day or two off, but that makes it really hard for me because then I've got so much writing to look at and so many posts to look at that if you don't stay in the date, I have trouble. So that's the thing there.
I have a question.
Sure.
How are the tests looking?
Some of them look pretty good. And so some of them, most of the questions you've seen before, or seen really similar questions. So that looks pretty good. I looked at some of the essays. Some of those look better than others, but there's a range always, Ethan, and so pretty good overall.
That's good.
So, okay. All right. Let's see. So I wanted to go to share a screen here and just show you about this week because there's a lot of stuff for this week. So I don't know if I can do that, can I? Okay, so let's try sharing this. No, this is the wrong one. Oops, hold on. I want to share a different one. Oh, and it's going to be a problem. Okay, hold on here. Do you see the Zoom sign, or do you see our page for this week?
Moodle page.
Moodle page. Okay. All right. So this week there are these two. They're actually pretty lengthy videos. One is on chemistry, atoms, molecules, and compounds, and the others are on cells, and they're both 20 minutes or so. I'm gonna almost always there'll be a half-hour video or so, and these are usually things for films on demand. And so, like, I'm on campus, and so the thing just comes up because I'm on campus. But if you're off campus, it'll come as a box. It'll be a yellow box, and if you scroll down within the box, there'll be a place for you to enter your library login stuff, or your Highland login stuff, and then it'll give you access off campus. But you've got to log into the library. But there's almost always that stuff there. Some of that is pretty good. It's I do these. My little YouTube videos are short and very crisp, and so because I want to keep them to under 10 minutes. The movies will be longer, but they have more interesting stuff, and so I'm hopeful that you guys watch those, and those are good ways to get more out of stuff. This week there's also 2 quizzes because we're covering bits of 2 chapters. And so one of the things that it's always fair to ask is, how much of this do I need to know? And so with chemistry, we're not. I'm not a chemist, and I don't want to teach a lot of chemistry. So I'll never ask you to balance a chemical reaction or anything like that. But I have to mention different chemicals. I have to say proteins. I have to say nucleic acids. I have to talk about DNA structure. And so since I have to do that, we have to have some background. I want you to kind of know that you don't have to do a lot of chemistry. Has anybody here had chemistry 120 or 101? One or two of you, 3 of you. Okay, so okay, so right, so I just want you to have a general idea, of what atoms are. They can be combined into molecules, and then they have new properties. And so DNA has this long regular structure that we can copy easily. Proteins can be made into all these shapes that can do specific jobs, like they can be a hormone or an enzyme or a structure. Because we're going to wind up talking about specific proteins, and then we're going to wind up talking a lot about DNA.
You did ask a chemistry question on the test, so I saw you slip that in.
I have to. It's biology. I have to. And so there's, I didn't want to be a chemist. I wanted to be a biologist. But after a while, there's a lot of chemistry you have to know. If you want to know about viruses, you have to know about their DNA and their protein. And so, like that whole chapter on chemistry, it's really basics. We're not going to balance equations. We're not going to calculate, boiling points or melting points or anything like that. But we're going to talk about different chemicals and how they're used. And so it's more of like, okay, I need you to know that a protein has nitrogen, that DNA has nitrogen and phosphorus. It's easy to copy DNA because it has this long shape, and there's an enzyme that can just add these bases that kind of interlock. And so that's the kind of thing we have to know. We'll have to know about fats a little bit, about sugars a little bit. But there's a lot of that stuff that's in there that I don't think's worth memorizing. Likewise with the chapter on cells, and that's why I put these 2 chapters together. I need you to know that DNA is in the nucleus, and that cells have, all cells have these certain features like ribosomes, which they use to make proteins. And so, there's a lot here that's really kind of background. And then for us, when it gets down to it, we'll dig into some details later. It's the way it is. It's just, there's lots of background, and later on we'll come back to talking about these types of organic molecules. And that's really the crucial thing, is that you can then know what an organic molecule is. These different classes have different properties. And so that's one of the things that I'm hoping you get. I realize there's a lot of reading, this week's, that's a lot of reading stuff. But for us, we're going to spend a fair amount of time talking about DNA structure, a fair amount of time talking about proteins, and I'll try and always come back to applications. Like in genetics, we're going to talk about how we got this genetics revolution, but it has big implications. They just sentenced the Golden State Killer. I don't know if anyone's heard about this. This is a guy that from the 70s and 80s that was convicted of multiple murders and rapes. Just convicted now because they got his DNA. And they got his DNA from old samples that they had saved from when these crimes happened. So it's, in some cases, almost 50 years ago. Crimes we could never solve any other way, we can now solve because we have abilities to deal with DNA in ways we didn't before. And so there's big applications, huge changes. And that criminal justice change, that's one of those huge changes, that we can solve crimes we couldn't solve before. And likewise, we can find people, we can find evidence now that exonerates someone, that proves that they didn't do it, and proves someone else may have done it. And so that's all about DNA and protein, and we're going to go into stuff like that. And so there's these huge applications that I want you to be able to understand from the biology end of it, but they'll have big impacts for your regular life. We're safer now than people were 40 or 50 years ago. And we're safer because it's not just cell phone video that makes us safer. It's that we can identify samples of skin cells, hair cells in ways we couldn't do 20 years ago. That it's so much better now that it's easier to catch people, and you can be much more sure I got the right guy. And so that's all about DNA and protein structure. So we have to do that. Okay. So once again, I'm late on getting the forum ready. I have all my classes online, and so I try and get all the stuff ready Monday. I'm almost always have one or two things that I didn't get ready. So the forum's not ready. I'll get it ready. There was extra other stuff. So I'll get that ready, and I will get your test done. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, me.
Yeah.
So that video, it says chapter 4, cell theory, but then we're doing chapter 2 and 3 this week.
Yeah, it's got so I take stuff that I did from my anatomy class, and they do it in chapter 4. So
Okay.
I just forgot to change something.
It's still chapter 3, right?
It's still chapter 3 for us. Okay. Chapter 4 for us will be tissues. And so I took slides from another PowerPoint and stuck them together, and that's where we go. So
sounds good.
So these are, we're going to go through, it's human biology. We do a lot of the same stuff in any biology course, whether it's the human anatomy and physiology course, or in the just general principles of biology. A lot of it is the same thing. Everybody's got cells, whether it's a plant or a human being. And so we wind up talking about cells. It turns out all living organisms have DNA. Okay, and so all living organisms use their DNA in the same way to make proteins, and then those proteins do different things. So if we were going to do basic botany or basic human biology, we wind up having to talk about DNA, protein, and cells. And so it makes it easier for me that I can take stuff from other courses. Okay. All right. The forums. So some of the forum stuff is really good. Some people are, it's obviously have looked all this stuff. It's, you can have multiple opinions on some of these things, but I'd like people to include some things so that I know you've read the prompts. So when you write about vaccines, it's okay to say, I'm not certain about vaccines, but I want you to be able to let me know that you know how vaccines were tested. You know that they're tested for safety. You know that there's several steps of clinical trials. And so when they release a vaccine in the United States, it's not like in Russia where they just say, well, we're going to send it out. We have a series of different tests that we go through. So we're pretty sure it's safe and we're pretty sure it works. So it's both safety and that it works. And to know that it's really safe, a vaccine like that they recommend for infants, okay, they have to be really sure before they're going to recommend a baby gets injected with something. They have to be really sure that's going to help. And so that's not a vaccine you can approve in a hurry. That's a vaccine that's going to take you a while. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions? No? Ethan?
I'm all right.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm good then. We'll do this again on Monday and Tuesday of next week. Again, I will have a forum hopefully before the night is over that you can work on. And I should have the exams done hopefully by the end of the week. Okay. All right. There's a lot to look at. Study hard. If you have any kind of questions and there's no forum scheduled, you can send me an email and I'll try and get back to it that day. It's good going. So, okay, I'm going to end it. I will post this online. If you have any other questions, then give me a call.
All right. Have a good week.
All right, you too.